Hello, everyone, and welcome to NextGen News.
I'm your host, and tonight we investigate one of the biggest financial challenges facing the United States, a crisis that affects more than 40 million Americans and has reshaped an entire generation's future. For many young people, graduating from college should mark the beginning of opportunity. A diploma has long been viewed as the key to a better career, higher income, and the American dream. But for millions of Americans, graduation doesn't just come with a degree. It comes with years, sometimes decades, of debt. Today, Americans collectively owe more than $7 trillion in federal and private student loans. That staggering figure makes student debt one of the largest forms of consumer debt in the nation, second only to home mortgages. The consequences reach far beyond monthly loan payments, and debt influences where people live, when they marry, whether they have children, what careers they choose, and even how they prepare for retirement. Tonight, we'll explore how America arrived at this point, why college became so expensive, who is paying the highest price, and whether there is any realistic solution to this growing financial burden. Let's begin by looking back several decades ago. Attending college was far more affordable than it is today. Public universities were heavily supported by state governments, tuition was relatively low, and many students could pay for much of their education through part-time jobs or modest financial assistance. For previous generations, graduating debt-free was not uncommon, but over time, the cost of higher education began rising much faster than inflation. Universities expanded their campuses, invested in new facilities, increased administrative staffing, and introduced more specialized academic programs. While these improvements benefited many students, they also contributed to rapidly increasing tuition costs. As college became more expensive, borrowing money became the norm rather than the exception. Today, millions of students finance their education through federal loans, private loans, or a combination of both. Many are only 18 years old when they sign loan agreements worth tens of thousands of dollars. At that age, few fully understand how interest accumulates or how long repayment may actually take. A 4-year degree that promises opportunity may ultimately require 20 years or more of monthly payments. Some borrowers repay far more than they originally borrowed because interest continues accumulating over time. The impact becomes especially clear after graduation. Many young professionals enter the workforce carrying debt balances ranging from $20,000 to over $100,000. Instead of using their first salaries to build savings or invest in their futures, a significant portion of their income goes toward loan payments. For recent graduates working in education, healthcare, social services, or public administration, salaries often grow much more slowly than loan obligations. As a result, financial pressure begins almost immediately after entering adulthood. Consider a typical example. A college graduate secures a full-time job earning a respectable salary. Each month, however, hundreds of dollars are automatically deducted to repay student loans. At rent, transportation, healthcare, groceries, insurance, and rising living expenses, and there is often very little money left at the end of the month. Many young professionals report feeling financially trapped despite working full-time. Student debt also changes major life decisions. For previous generations, buying a first home often occurred in a person's 20s. Today, many young Americans delay purchasing property because lenders consider student loan obligations when evaluating mortgage applications. Even individuals with stable careers may struggle to qualify for home loans. Others postpone marriage, delay having children, or continue living with roommates well into adulthood because financial security remains out of reach. For many, student debt has become an invisible barrier to building the life they imagined. The emotional impact can be just as significant. Financial stress is one of the leading causes of anxiety among young adults. Borrowers often describe feeling overwhelmed by balances that seem impossible to eliminate. Some postpone career changes because they cannot risk earning less while loan payments remain due. Others continue working jobs they dislike simply because the salary is necessary to meet monthly financial obligations. Mental health professionals increasingly recognize financial debt as an important source of long-term emotional stress. The burden is not distributed equally. Students pursuing careers in medicine, dentistry, law, or graduate education often accumulate significantly larger debt balances. Although these professions may eventually offer higher salaries, many graduates spend years completing additional training before earning substantial incomes. Meanwhile, individuals entering lower-paying professions, such as teaching or social work, frequently struggle with debt repayment despite performing essential public services. This has fueled growing debate about whether America's financing system adequately supports workers in critical occupations. The effects extend beyond individual borrowers. Economists believe student debt influences the broader American economy. Young adults carrying large loan balances tend to spend less on homes, automobiles, travel, and consumer goods. Lower spending can slow economic growth in other industries. Entrepreneurship may also decline. Starting a business often requires financial risk, yet many graduates hesitate to leave stable employment because they cannot afford to miss loan payments. Innovation, job creation, and small business growth may all be affected by the weight of educational debt. The political debate surrounding student loans has become increasingly intense. Some leaders argue that portions of federal student debt should be forgiven, particularly for borrowers facing financial hardship. Supporters believe debt relief would stimulate economic activity, reduce inequality, and help younger generations achieve greater financial stability. Others strongly disagree. Critics argue that forgiving loans would be unfair to taxpayers who never attended college or to borrowers who already repaid their debts. They also warn that loan forgiveness alone does not solve the underlying problem, the continuously rising cost of higher education. Some recommend increasing government investment in public universities to reduce tuition. Others support expanding scholarships and grant programs so students rely less on borrowing. Financial education has also become an important topic. Many educators argue that students should receive far better guidance before taking on large loans, ensuring they fully understand repayment terms, interest rates, and long-term financial consequences. Universities are also being encouraged to improve transparency by providing clearer information about expected career outcomes and average graduate earnings. Technology may also reshape higher education. Online learning, hybrid degree programs, professional certifications, and shorter career-focused training options continue expanding. These alternatives often cost significantly less than traditional four-year degrees while preparing students for rapidly changing industries. Some employers increasingly prioritize practical skills and work experience alongside or even above traditional academic credentials. This shift may gradually reduce reliance on expensive college pathways for certain careers. Despite the challenges, millions of Americans continue believing that education remains one of the most valuable investments they can make. College graduates, on average, still tend to earn more over their lifetimes than those without degrees. The question is no longer whether education has value. The question is whether that value should require decades of financial sacrifice. As tuition continues rising and borrowing becomes increasingly common, policymakers, educators, and families face difficult decisions about the future of higher education in America. Can the nation preserve access to quality education without placing generations under overwhelming financial pressure? Or will student debt continue growing into an even greater challenge for the next generation? The answers will shape not only individual lives, but also the future of the American economy. Education has always represented hope, opportunity, and progress. Whether it continues to serve as a pathway toward prosperity or becomes a lifelong financial burden may depend on the choices America makes in the years ahead. That's all for tonight's special report. Thank you for joining us on NextGen News. I'm your host, wishing you a safe evening, good night, and we'll see you next time.